What is going on, everybody? Happy Monday. BobbyFi with my man Eric Sheets-Haber. Sheets coming off a nice little win on Sunday, and
we'll take that
in the NBA, and we're ready to get back to it for another week here. I actually think that we're getting a little bit more condensed into what we know is who's playing for what. I know it's sort of been happening, but it's been such a mess. I actually don't feel like this slate it's going to be messy. There's going to be weird value and stuff, but we will have some studs to talk about, and we'll do a first look like we always do. Sheets, why don't you talk about your little win?
Yeah, so let me pull up my screen, and this is the lesson I want to share with you, is that of game selection. So these are my caches from yesterday. So this is the one I want to focus in on, because this won the 3 max, okay? And the reason I bring it up is for a number of reasons. Number one is, as you can see, all you need is a couple of kind of hoodoos, right? So Booker was at 11%. Lowry for a short slate was pretty low owned, actually, at 18%. And everybody else was chalk. Like Luka was 81%. So even though he busted, everybody busted. It didn't really matter.
Right.
And Eubanks basically just exactly got there for 78%. And it's everything else is whatever. So for some of these tournaments, you don't need to be that different. And this, I won by, clear 10 points. I mean, look how bunched everything else was,
I'm guessing
I didn't even have the best performer.
There must have been a major chalk fail.
Yeah, there was. I'll tell you what that was in a second. The chalk fail was, where is he? I'm going to get there. It was the guy from Toronto who I mentioned. Who's the backup for Toronto? Malachi Flynn.
Oh, Malachi Flynn, right.
Malachi Flynn was 50% owned, and he had three fantasy points in it.
There you go.
But Lowry wasn't even like the top guy. Like Siakam, had 70 fantasy points.
Right.
And I didn't even have that.
Right.
So that's really all you needed. But the reason I bring it up is not that. Hold on a minute. Lineups. Hold on a minute.
History.
Recent.
Yeah.
And then NBA. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
The reason I bring it up is I got first in the 3 max. The same lineup got 312th, like in the lottery. Like
right.
So you got to know what you're putting yourself in, and it wasn't even close. I mean, I was like 50 points away from first. Now you notice, by the way, look at all these dudes tied.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
So like when you're playing this type of tournament, you can't get away with just one, whatever. I mean, you can't get away with it. I'm trying to think of what one. I mean, this is the type of thing you need. You couldn't play Luka at 70% and win this thing. Like here, you needed like some wild thing like this, But if you're going to play 3 max, which pays pretty good, you can get away with it. So that's took me a while to figure it out. Right?
It's a big thing, and it's something that people have always said. Well, why do you focus on bigger tournaments? I mean, even the regular big tournaments, you're dealing with less entries, and especially if it's like a 3 max or whatever. Even if you're not max entering it, you have a much more level playing field than you do normally.
Yeah, and the other thing what's kind of sneaky about this tournament, about the 3 max and the single entries, whatever, is even though you're going to probably play against some good players. They're one thing I have noticed with the good players, they're not very finicky about what tournaments they enter their lineups in. Like they'll find like their best lineup and just like enter it in everything. And there are some lineups that are just not suited for the particular tournament that they're entering in. So I'll see like a single entry type build in like a 20 max, and that doesn't necessarily work, and it cuts both ways. So even though you're up against good players in some of these bigger buy-ins, I still think that people are not as specific about the types of things they're putting in. And the fact is that if I'm going to play like freaking 20 entries in like the 150 max, it's the same amount of money as I put like the same in like I'll take all 3 of the 3 max. So it's you spread your risk out more with the 20 max, but it's really hard to win those things.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. Well, with all that said, I mean, look, great job, man, as usual. Let's get back to it. I'm excited. I'm going to be playing NBA this week. Not like crazy, but I'm ready to get back into it. I'm excited about the playoff push coming. I'm excited that my season. So I've got a couple quick season long bets that I'm going to just talk about real quick. So I've got Bradley Beal at 75-1, which would be a really nice hit, and he's up by 0.1 on Curry right now.
Wow.
And I don't feel great about it.
Oh my God.
But that's one thing. I've got Jokic and Embiid as MVPs. I got Jokic at 30-1, 35-1, and Embiid at 25-1. Those look pretty good. I've got Phoenix to win the division, which is basically a cinch. And then the other one, the only one reason I mentioned it because it's going to lead into our first game, is the Wizards to win more than 45% of their games, which they're at 45.03
Wow.
right now.
It's a good line, huh?
That's the biggest bet I made of any of them. So that's my large bet on the season, and the Wizards to make the playoffs, which again, they're going to have to win their postseason games or whatever. But it sort of leads into our first game. So that's why I wanted to mention. I feel really good about the preseason bets I made. I took some long shot stuff that's never going to happen, but most of them for small amounts of money. And the big bets are looking like they got a shot. So that's going to lead us into me wanting Washington to win this first game. But we have some serious DFS stuff to talk about in this game, because this is going to be an absolute shootout where only one guy is really going to be owned in the game, right?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I'm interested in. Assuming he's healthy again. Yeah, I like Westbrook. He's going to be a zillion percent owned. I like Sabonis from Indiana. I hope he's healthy because it's a good spot for him. And I know 9,800 doesn't, sounds pretty expensive, but it's a good game environment. Indiana's been just wicked fast themselves. They haven't played a lot of defense either. That's not like them, but that's the way it's been.
Yep.
So I do want a piece from each side of this, I think, and I do like Westbrook. I do like Beal, I have to say.
Yep.
I don't want to play them both together. And I like Sabonis on the other side.
Yeah, those are the three for me as well. I'm trying to look back and see. I think Sabonis just went nuts in the last time these guys played. Yeah, well, he had a great game. Yeah, he was 61. That was when everybody was healthy for Indiana. I remember because that was the night I got him at 3% in that one. But I do like Sabonis. I don't know that I'm going to end up getting to him. It's going to be. There's a reason why all this is like that. Now we also have Lamb, Batatse, and Brogdon questionable.
Yeah.
That would open up some things, but the thing is, this is a really important game for both teams right now. They're the 9 and 10 teams in the East. Not at worst, it could mean a home court thing, or it might mean that they could get up to they could still both catch Charlotte and get in that 8th spot, which means you'd only have to win one of 2 games rather than winning 2 games in a row. So it's a very important game for both teams. I assume the best players will give it a go. I don't know what the situation is going to be with Lamb and Batatse, but I would expect Brogdon to play. We'll know about it beforehand, but I will wait. If for some reason Brogdon's out, another thing, so anything else, I'll be open to talking about McConnell, and it would make me like Sabonis even more, obviously.
Is LeVert active?
LeVert's active. I'm
just saying, if Brogdon's out, I'd like to think that he'd be a good player.
8.6 is a little bit tough for me, but I get it. Like it's a little tough for me to get there. And the thing with Beal that's tough. Like I think Beal will keep shooting. He's been shooting during this whole time and actually been pretty decent. The usage has been good. The thing is, almost no assist numbers anymore. Westbrook is dominating that part of things. Actually, Westbrook's just been freaking phenomenal in real life. And the games they've lost, I mean, they literally could have won every game they've played and over the past months, and they almost have. But Westbrook he was absolutely incredible on Saturday. But yeah, so Beal just hitting a ceiling, you really need him to score like 40 plus points. I mean, this guy made 20 of 37 shots against San Antonio in that overtime game and had 50 fantasy points. So at 9,500, it's a little bit, is there other value that we'd rather spend? But I do think this is a game we want. The other guy who no one is going to play from this game, but again, I'm going to go with a little bit of game environment, and it's Hachimura. So I have mild interest in him. That's where I'm at right now in this game.
Yeah, I like if Brogdon is out. We say this a lot. I mean, I don't think people realize what a matchup with Washington kind of does to the overall game.
Mhm.
The Westbrook is he's just nonstop. The guy's just an unlimited gas tank, and he goes 100 miles an hour, and the whole game goes 100 miles an hour. As weird as this sounds, I think that I think Levert's like, I think it's too cheap. I do. I think he could score 60 with in a tuxedo in this matchup.
Well, does it go that way, or does it go the Sabonis 70 way? Maybe
it could. It very well could. I just feel as though those fast breaks, whatever it is, and I think, given that Westbrook, one of the reasons why he's always better on DraftKings than on FanDuel is because FanDuel, they punish you for turnovers a little more. I do think Westbrook still can turn the ball over. I think TJ McConnell can get a lot of deflections in here. He's pretty expensive as well. But I think that, I don't know if they're good enough plays at those prices, but certainly freaking really good plays if Brogdon's out. So
yeah, one thing, and I'm not saying you're like, it's totally true about Westbrook turning the ball over. He goes through those things. He has been really good lately at protecting the ball, actually. But it's been pretty incredible assist to turnover ratio. He's actually efficiency wise been the number 2 player since the All-Star break in the NBA, and he's number 7 on the season.
That is amazing.
Overall efficiency, and the way that the media talks about him, you would never get that in that vibe. But that's how good he's been. So anyway, I think we covered this game, but this is a game where if there is any other nonsense, we're going to have to look back at it, because there is, it should be a shootout. Oh, I'm sorry. The one other guy we didn't mention, and again, game environment, it's fluky with him sometimes, and we'll have other value, but Bertans at 3,700 could always shoot his way into 30 plus fantasy points.
All right. So with respect to value this week, I have right now at least 3 or 4 guys that look to be like good cheap value, and I was expecting more of them to come from this Orlando-Detroit game, but I guess not. I have Moritz Wagner as an okay play at 4,600. Although, Moritz Wagner with ownership doesn't exactly make me feel so great. As a matter of fact, I would say that all of the guys that I'm identifying as value right now all look kind of fishy to me. But that's where I'm at. And aside from that, I don't know. You want to play Mo Bamba? You want to take a shot at you want to play Josh Jackson? What a terrible basketball game. I don't know. What do you like here?
It sucks because there's a lot of guys worth, at the very least, speculating on here. I will go back and just say that Isaiah Stewart, I love playing Isaiah Stewart. The price tag has come up a little bit. There are other centers. It's maybe not ideal, but he is one of the guys in this game who's standing out for me. Saddiq Bey's all over the place, but was amazing for me on Friday. Even though he was 7 for 21, he had 48 fantasy. Oh no, that was every game. He had 35 on Friday, but he was 5,100 on FanDuel. I think Saddiq Bey makes sense on both sites. Josh Jackson, obviously, I still feel like we don't know who's going to play whenever these certain teams play, and these are 2 of them, especially Detroit. So it's hard to Diallo, if he's good to go, I would take a shot on him for sure. It's really, really hard to know. I'm not going to play Frank Jackson. I don't think I'm going to play Cole Anthony, even though I get it. I know Gary Harris has had some good games. I'm not going to do that personally on this slate. Killian Hayes, they finally raised his price on DraftKings, not as much on FanDuel. Makes a lot more sense to me on FanDuel, but it's definitely still in play. Like, all of these guys' rate is sort of being okay for me. I want to see how the starting lineups shake out. The Mo Wagner thing, it might be like, I'm just confused a little bit, I guess, when it comes to that one, because I don't understand why they're giving him minutes, really. Why are Wendell Carter minutes going to him? I didn't watch the Memphis games. I'll look back at it. But was there foul trouble? Was it that they didn't feel the matchup maybe with Valanciunas? Because those are really the only games that Wagner played the minutes. So I could easily see those trending away from him. I'm not going to probably play Mo Wagner. If he's starting, I might change my tune. I don't know. I don't feel great about it. And even the Gary Harris thing, even though he's playing minutes and played well or whatever, how long till they really stop playing this? Like, they're not trying to win games. You know what I mean? He's not like a young core part of their team. I don't know. So I'm just I'm a little bit like just meh on all these guys, and I wish I could give a better answer, but it's early, and I'm sure by the time we reconvene later on, I will have a stronger take.
In case you forget to get to these guys individually on FanDuel, I mean, you did mention already, Killian Hayes remains cheap on FanDuel at 4,400, and Josh Jackson remains cheap on FanDuel at 5,200. Another guy that, I mean, he's probably going to show up as a good value, especially on FanDuel, maybe on DraftKings too, just because of his last game, was RJ Hampton. He did get 30 minutes in the last game on, scored 40 fantasy points at 3K with 3,600. I wouldn't count on any of the things that he did in the last game to occur again, or at least today. So I don't know if I want to go chase that, but he's probably going to be projected decently. And you know what? Here's another great thing I don't like about content. And let's talk about NBA content. You know what they'll say? People come on and say, RJ Hampton, man, if he's going to get 30 minutes, sign me up. Well, great.
Yeah.
You don't know. Thanks a lot. Gee, thanks a lot for that.
Right.
He'll get 30 minutes if things break in a certain way, and if he's performing really, really well, then he will get. But you don't know in advance if he's going to get 30 minutes. It doesn't take a genius to tell me if you give me 30 minutes at 3,600 or whatever he is, that, and then they'll say, well, if you're going to give me 30 minutes on him and give me 15 shots, yeah, sign me up. I like that. Oh, terrific.
Right.
So that's where I'm at on that. I didn't look at Isaiah Stewart on FanDuel yet. I presume he's still cheap. No, maybe not. Oh no, they finally got there, 6,300.
Yeah.
Still a good play.
I do think that RJ Hampton would be the guy I would want to play of those guys, though. And I don't know. I think the minutes are in flux, like you're saying. But does fit the guy. I mean, he's a rookie. They should try and get him run. If he's playing well, I think he stays on the court. And I don't think he's like early in the day. I'm not projecting him to be crazy high owned or anything. If somehow he like ends up starting or something, that could be different, but I don't see how that's going to happen. He's the one I probably have the most interest in on the Orlando side.
So with Golden State, New Orleans, I have I have Westbrook as my top spend. I have Curry close enough. I shouldn't say that. I have Curry close enough to Jokic. I'll say that. So I do like Curry here, and Zion fits the Sheets 10K round number theory that he'll get less ownership at 9,900 than he would at 10K. So he's fine. I mean, he's a good play, not a standout play, but he's going to be low owned at that price, I would imagine. Mm-hmm. So if you want to play those two together, that would be an interesting way to spend a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Draymond at 7K. This is on DraftKings. Looks playable. And aside from that, Bazemore, they priced him up 5,200. I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
Yeah, I still have some interest in Bazemore. Not if he's going to be too high owned, but I think it's a good game environment for him, and they're giving him the run. This is their little playoff push with the injuries. We need to know about Wiggins' status. If he's out, that opens up a lot of other possibilities like Jordan Poole, Michael Mulder, guys like that, even potentially Toscano Anderson. It depends on how the lineup would shake out, but we should actually have some idea of that by lock. So I like Curry. I mean, look, he's not only trying to win the scoring title, they're trying to win games, and in order to do that, he needs to score. So I do see the argument. He's going to be fairly high owned at 10-8, and I think that in those situations, I would probably just try to find a way to play Jokic instead. But I do like him, and I agree with what you said about Zion. I think Zion, obviously, he'll be popular on FanDuel, but it's always interesting because, like, he's 9K on FanDuel, 10K on DraftKings. When you factor in what the salary allocation is, it's actually there's still a gap there, but it's not much of a gap. And you're going to have him 2% owned versus 20% owned or 30% owned. And I think that's kind of an interesting thing to take on DraftKings. The only thing is, like, he's been playing all the minutes, and they're sort of I mean, they're not going to make the playoffs, the play-in game, but they're probably still at that point where they're really trying. And Yeah, so Zion is fine with me. It's just I feel like Jokic is a little bit better of a play if you're spending up than either of these guys as a second spend up, but I don't think it's that far off either of them.
Ready for Portland, Atlanta?
Yeah, I'm just going to mention this guy because he's absolutely just been unbelievable at times and shown a real ceiling. And just Lonzo, he's put up 65 or more in 2 of his past 3. We know he's got a ceiling if he gets hot, and contrary to most people's beliefs, he can actually shoot it. So he made 8 threes in his last game. I'm not saying he'll do that again, but I don't think if there's a matchup that's really good for him, this would be that kind of environment. It's a little expensive, but I do kind of like him.
I've got no problem with playing a Trey Lillard combination, presuming that Trey's back with full no minutes issues and things like that. I got no problem with that. Neither of them can guard anybody, especially each other. So I'm interested in that, and I think everybody else I didn't get to with respect to values over here. CJ the 8100 on DraftKings. I mean, he's just on the border of being okay as far as I'm concerned. And that was pretty much it. All I had.
Yeah, I look an unowned Lillard is obviously look. I actually think it's at the point where in this they're in must-win mode too. They just passed the Lakers, or they're tied with the Lakers, but the Lakers are now in technically the 7th seed, which would keep Portland out of the play-in game. I think that in those situations, you kind of pray Atlanta this game stays close and Damian Lillard does Damian Lillard things, and I think that he's a phenomenal play. I think he's the best play we've talked about when you factor in ownership, upside, even floor. I don't buy that his production, what he's being measured on is not entirely like accurate. Like, I mean, when they're in the tough games and it's down the stretch and he's playing 38 minutes, which is what you're counting on to try and win a GPP here. Like, he's going to put up in the 50s with an upside of 70 plus. And he's done his last 2 games. He's put up 57 and 59. I'm definitely on board with Lillard here. And I think that on the, I like that Nurkic is getting back into the role and everything. One thing that's weird, I'm sort of grazing over this. It is a back-to-back for them. So you could say Nurkic might be play like a few less minutes or something like that. That's definitely a possibility. He hasn't played a ton of minutes on the back-to-back since coming back from the injury. So it might open up more for Lillard even. I'm just talking myself into Lillard. And I do like Trey on the other side as well. I don't know if you get into a Lillard, Trey, Westbrook thing on DraftKings, you're obviously using up all your guard spots, your point guard spots. But I do think that's kind of an interesting route, and it's something I'm considering.
All right, Knicks against Memphis. Well, welcome to Taj Gibson chalk night. Is that accurate? That's not for me. Someone else can do it. I think the whole game is a pass for me. If you want to know the truth, I mean, if anything, I would pay up for Randall. Again, boy, oh boy, he's almost the same price as Embiid. It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
If anything, that's what I would do. I don't think I want to play Taj Gibson as chalk. I know Tibbs loves him and all that stuff, but I don't know. Maybe I'll end up having it. Maybe the optimizers will force me to do it, and I might end up doing it. But right now, I'd rather not. And unfortunately for Memphis, I mean, the Knicks are one of the best defensive teams in basketball. It's kind of hard to make any headway against them somehow. So it's God knows how that happened, but nonetheless, it's kind of off of this whole team. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, too many bodies for Memphis for me to play the guessing game again in this matchup. Yeah. It does feel wrong to play Taj Gibson at chalk, but 3,100 with the forward eligibility may end up using a little bit of it depending on what other value opens up. I'm just going to mention, like, Derrick Rose is, I mean, other than one game, what has he been at? He's been over 34 of his last 5. He's hit 40. He's been at 37, 38, and he had 2 of the other ones. He would be the guy I have the most interest in outside of maybe using Taj, and I've got to figure out what to do.
I'm gonna put you another way. I'm gonna be a content provider. I'm gonna say, dude, you give me 30 minutes at Taj Gibson, sign me up. Well, I'll tell you something. They gave you 30 minutes of Taj Gibson, 32 minutes, and he got 12 fantasy points.
Yeah.
So that could be for somebody else. That'll be
okay. All right, I like it, Sheets. Philadelphia, Chicago. I mean, like we talk about so much about all the, trying to get low owned guys and stuff, but we also probably don't talk enough about what I was mentioning on your old, from last night. Fading chalk can just be just as valuable as playing it. Obviously, it sounds like an obvious thing to say, but I like that you take hard stances on things like the Gibson thing, and I think it's a good idea. So anyway, Philadelphia, Chicago. Look, you got low owned Joel Embiid. I know it's not the same matchup that he had before against Chicago when he's put up like 95 or something because Vucevic is there now. But I mean, if we're gonna talk about those other guys, I would have Embiid right, because of the ownership factor. Shouldn't Embiid not be too far behind? If at all, maybe because of ownership, even a better play than Steph.
I have Westbrook as the best play, right?
Right.
And after that, I have Jokic, Curry, Randall, Embiid, Young, Lillard, and Beal, all within fractions of each other with respect to value.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to tell me I'm getting Embiid at 8% or whatever that is?
Yeah.
You can sign me up for that.
Yep. Yeah. I'm definitely on board as well. Weird mid-price guy who just is, I like him for this matchup, and he's a little bit lower priced than we're used to getting him, is Tobias Harris. And
that's it's a little disrespect. No, maybe not.
He's been a little bit off lately, but they've been blowing everybody out, and people might say, oh well, yeah, Chicago's still trying to get their shit together, whatever you want to say. They're 5-point favorites. This is not like a huge spread game. So
yeah, I don't like anybody in Chicago, by the way.
I think that if you're talking about reaching for extra value, using Patrick Williams or Garrett Temple is not the worst thing in the world. And I know that Vooch has had some good games in the past against Embiid. On FanDuel, I'm definitely considering Vooch at 9K.
Okay.
And that's pretty much where I'm at for this game.
So here's another one that I'm not doing.
This is what the problem is. I love all these spend ups, and that's what's going to be Sheets. For me, I'm probably going to end up spending sort of 2.5 times up today. And what I want is at least one of those guys to be in single digit ownership, because while yes, Jokic is clearly a better play in terms of average projection than Embiid is here, the difference in terms of ceiling and upside, and even if Embiid wins by 4, or even if they tie and the 300 ends up saving you enough to get you somebody, anything else, I just would like to try that. You know what I mean? It just doesn't, there's not that big of a gap. So I would rather take the guy who's 1/4 his own. But in terms of actual plays, Jokic is a phenomenal play. And I don't really have anything else to say about it. This game should be close. It's important to both teams, especially the Lakers. Campazzo is not what I'm going to do today. Everything with the Lakers, but they're still very good defensively. So this might be the really weird play that I make, even though I mentioned the other guys. I do like Lillard, and maybe because he's going to be low owned enough, I can just do that instead of doing what I'm about to suggest. I don't think it's unreasonable to play LeBron here.
I don't think he's playing.
He's questionable.
I mean, he left the game last night. I mean,
he left the game.
I'm doubting he's going to play, but
they're okay. But they're fighting for something, and this is the thing is they do have a pretty soft schedule coming up, but that would actually make me even think more, unless he's really as badly hurt. Okay, we'll see. We won't actually. Maybe we won't see.
They were down 15, 20 points, whatever, when he left, but they cut it to within 9, and he never came back. Well, and the fact that I'm getting a projection of what I'm getting on Caruso is indicating to me that he's not playing. That LeBron's not playing. We obviously we'll have to take a look at that.
Yeah, I'll dig a little further. I mean, we'll know more. We'll have more idea after they do the morning stuff and everything. Should actually be pretty soon. But I'm just saying from a simple the Lakers need to win angle, which is when LeBron tends to actually really show up. I think he's interesting from that perspective, and no one will play him.
Well, we got to talk about this because if he doesn't play,
yeah.
If the Lakers really need to win that much, you really got to play AD.
I don't think you do.
Okay.
Because I don't see like AD is not that same type of guy. Like he's not, I'm going to go out there, but I think you can play him. Absolutely. Like I think he's fine. But I don't think he's anywhere near a must play. I think he'll shoot up ownership wise. And when you get into him versus Lillard, I think it's an interesting conversation. And Lillard's cheaper, does take up a guard spot, unfortunately, but that's sort of the way I'm looking at it. If he's not going to be owned and LeBron's out and we have that information, then I do think,
my initial projections and looks have like Alex Caruso as projected for like 7x and like a 30% ownership. So I was going to go on this whole thing, so I don't need Caruso as chalk either. I think the industry is presuming that LeBron is out, but we obviously that has to be inspected.
I'll wait to see on that one. I mean, like Caruso still is 3K. We'll play probably 20 minutes anyway, or more, but I don't know that I need to go there yet. If LeBron is out, obviously it does open things up. It would also open up potentially Thalen Horton-Tucker, which I think would be
He was okay yesterday, by the way.
Yeah, he played well actually.
I thought of you. This is actually amazing. So this is Bobby does know his basketball, and he certainly knows his Lakers. I was watching him again because I was sweating freaking Lowry like the whole game, right? So I was sweating that whole game, and the Lakers, they had like some defensive possession where they kind of gave something up, and then they came down, and Tucker had like an and one, like an awesome freaking play for himself. And instead of like giving the high five, whoever was on the court, like immediately like would just like instruct him and yelling him about the defense of the previous possession. And Bobby had been saying like this whole year, like that not only does he not know what he's doing on defense, but they all know it. And they all like yell at him about it. And it was after he made an and one on the offensive end, they were like just telling him what he was supposed to do back at the defensive end.
He's got like it's funny too because he's like a capable like quality like has the ability to be that kind of defensive player. Like he's got really long arms and on one he's all right, but he like misses every rotation. He's just always in the wrong spot, and it's like you have to really watch the Lakers to see this happen as much as it happens.
Yeah.
But those would be the guys: Caruso, Horton-Tucker, and then Kuzma as well. I would have interest in along with Davis. I need to sort of refocus it because I need to figure out what's happening with LeBron because you got me thinking a little bit more. I thought he was gonna like give it a go, but I didn't. I guess I wasn't putting all the pieces together. So I'll revisit that one later because I need to look.
Well, I'm a little useless for now in this San Antonio game because all of my stuff is based on those guys still not playing, and I presume I think they might all be in this game. So I have to look at that again. I mean, I was going to go on a whole thing. I was watching that game too about the different rotations and things like that. Like Eubanks was in for two. He got 2 fouls pretty quickly, or quickly enough, and then he got run, but he didn't close. They closed with the Dieng. He ended up closing at the big position. And Keldon Johnson. It was Keldon Johnson, Lonnie Walker. Mills, although he didn't start, ended up closing, and also and Rudy Gay had a tremendous game. He had a really, really good
game. San Antonio won that game, right?
They did not, I think. I think that they choked at the end, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just look at it. Yeah, it was. I think it was a tough loss at the end. They lost by 2.
Yeah.
No, you know what happened? They tied it, and then I was rooting. I didn't even know if I was supposed to root for overtime, but I was. And Embiid missed a shot with 1 second to go, and Simmons with an amazing tip in at the buzzer, won it at the buzzer for Philadelphia.
Oh wow. Yeah, I felt like the Spurs sort of like threw out that game because they wanted to try and win
Yes.
the game tonight.
Yeah. So I don't know what to do, but
So
so I don't have anything for San Antonio
the
right now.
Spurs need to win. I'm assuming everybody's going to be back. DeRozan and DeJounte Murray, I think, are both strong plays, assuming everybody's back. I don't think I'm going to play Podol, but I think that he's even reasonable too. I really think that they're going to play, but I'm not 100% on this. Obviously, that's where I'm at right now. On the other side, Utah's in a funny spot here because you could argue they need to win. The Lakers getting into that play-in game is sort of throwing things off because now they're tied for first with Phoenix in the West, and you wouldn't want to play the Lakers in the first round, I don't think. So, or maybe, I mean, there's a contrary thing where maybe that's the best time to get them, but the thing is, you'd rather someone else get them. I think that would be Utah's main goal there. So Yang is still, I like him at 3,800. I think he's reasonable, and I think that his horrible game a couple days ago might throw people off. I actually think he's still reasonable. Royce O'Neal is the more obvious one because you feel very sure about the minutes, and he's actually been like able to contribute in enough other ways. Hasn't really scored at all, but I'm not like in love with any of these spots, to be completely honest. So they're all fine with me, but I'm not like prioritizing anybody from Utah.
I agree with that. I agree with all those leans. I mean, I think that if got into my head point per dollar, I think Yang's the best play on Utah. Okay, but it's not someone you have to jam in your lineup.
Yeah.
And then I would say Royce O'Neal would be my second best play. And again, and then we're talking about more of the spend up. So I don't think anybody in Utah is a particular priority. Those are like if I had 3,800 left and it was 10 o'clock, you know what I mean? Like, all right, no problem putting Yang in there, but not nothing's a big priority from that game for me.
Yeah, I hear you. So I just have my guys who I've gone through. I still think Westbrook is the best play, but there's enough other good spend ups where I think you can go different directions. I'm just gonna say like it's basically like you're giving away, like the guy is, with the exception again of one game, is just, or two games I guess, both against Cleveland oddly enough, and one of them they just won by like 50 points, but he's just a walking 60 to 90, like mostly 60 to 70, but that's hard to just say no to. So Westbrook, I think Jokic is the next actual best spend up, but I think in terms of ownership, I like the idea of the Trey, but especially the Lillard part of it. I really like Lillard. And then I like Embiid. I think I didn't realize on FanDuel, I think that Embiid is the better, like he's going to be owned over there, but it also make him completely unowned on DraftKings. He's 9.6 on FanDuel, and it's really hard not to have interest in it. And then you also have Vooch at 9K, and I like both those guys a lot, especially Embiid. So over on FanDuel, I'd prefer them over Jokic and Westbrook in some sense, but actually maybe not Westbrook, just Jokic. But on DraftKings, it's really hard not to want to play Jokic over them. And then just other guys who I think are kind of interesting. Well, Josh Jackson, obviously, he's going to be popular too. I do like the RJ Hampton idea. And then I really do think that getting that Trey and maybe not even doing the trade part, but I really, really like Lillard. I think that's what I'm going to talk myself into. And if he really does go off low owned here, I think it's a mistake. And it's interesting because you look at the value on DraftKings today and point per dollar projections, and we actually like just could take the last games from all of these the top rated values, and everybody would have failed us. So, you know what I mean? Not to say that that's going to happen again, but that's it. And they're basically the same situations too. So just let's see what value opens up later today, and we can figure it out from there, because it's this value feels sketchy a little bit to me, as it is, including guys like Demboya. There's really nobody. I mean, I actually feel as good about Garrett Temple as Taj Gibson at high ownership at 3.1, or Garrett Temple at low ownership at 3.6, or fairly low ownership. I would rather play Garrett Temple. I know that he's going to play the minutes, and Taj Gibson probably will. But I don't, if you factor in the ownership at 1/3 the ownership or 1/4 the ownership, maybe, I certainly think Temple would be the guy I would go with. Things like that. But I don't love any of these. I think we're going to get better value as the day goes on.
Want to do a FanDuel?
Sure.
A point guard on FanDuel. It would be nice if I could get both these guys, Curry and Westbrook. That would be. But there are the three values that we kind of alluded to during the course of the DraftKings thing were RJ Hampton. He's 4,000. Caruso is 3,700, and Killian Hayes remains cheap at 4,400. So I'll put him in here just for now and see what it looks like. But those are my options.
Yeah, there's a slew of things you can do at point guard on FanDuel, in my opinion. You can pay down for the Hayes and Hampton. You can pay up for Westbrook and Curry, which, I mean, Curry's price is very tempting. Then again, you get the completely unknown Damian Lillard, and you know, he's 8,900. He's not even 9K. Damian Lillard and Trae Young. So I think Curry and Westbrook, if I'm spending up, are the guys I'm going to go with. I think Killian Hayes is probably like almost always getting there at 4,400, or most of the time getting there at 4,400. But I think that I'd rather try the Westbrook Curry thing, or maybe I'll even just double punt in certain lineups with Hayes and Hampton, hope to get my 30s out of them or something like that, and get my high scorers elsewhere. So either one are viable to me, but I do like Westbrook and Curry a ton.
And watch for the possibility Brogdon doesn't play. You can get TJ McConnell a little cheaper over here at 5,200.
Yeah. Maybe even, by the way, now that I say it out loud, and I love Westbrook tonight, but I think you could play Curry and Lillard and potentially get the same. Both of those guys could have a similar outcome as Westbrook, and you're getting a huge discount.
Shooting guard, you had already alluded to Josh Jackson, chalky, but probably the best play. Hamidou Diallo, you already mentioned that. Another guy that we didn't talk that much about, which I like, is CJ McCollum. Obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but I wouldn't play him in Lillard lineups. But I do think that game environment obviously is pretty good. Maybe what's Trey's price, by the way, on Atlanta?
He's 94 on, but he's point guard.
I know that. I'm trying to think of would there be a world where I would play Trey. Probably not. In any case, CJ McCollum I like at 7,400 is my other favorite shooting guard.
Yeah. CJ makes sense over here because I don't really like his position. Over here, I do like Jordan Clarkson a little bit better. If Wiggins plays, he's even on my list. I just don't like his position very much. Josh Jackson is the obvious standout, and he will be in my main lineup most likely, unless something weird happens later on. And then if we lose LeBron, I just want to remind everybody about the THT thing.
Yes. My favorite play at small forward is someone you mentioned as kind of I almost forgot to mention him on DraftKings, and I don't understand this ownership at all. But if this guy's literally going to be remotely under 20%, I mean, you're getting Rui at 3,900. I mean, honestly, so that'd be my best play here by relatively decent amount actually. Because after that, it's like a lot of crap. Like Ingles, Danny Green, Ingram. Yeah, so I think Rui's kind of a standout.
Yeah, he's been off. They've even limited his minutes a little bit more at times. I mean, he's still playing minutes, but it hasn't played his best basketball. But 3,900, I'm with you. I like Rui, and especially he's going to be lower owned than. Look, Kyle Anderson is completely fine, but again, there's so many bodies in Memphis. A lot could happen. He's going to be really chalky. I do like Sadiq Bey, but we've seen his incredibly wide range of outcomes almost every time he plays. It's like 10 or 50. Ingles over here is extremely affordable. So here's where I do like the Utah guys. So I think Ingles and Rui with maybe Sadiq instead of Ingles or something like that. Those are my natural first look standouts.
So I don't want to say disrespect, but Aaron Gordon's 4,300.
I should have mentioned Brandon Ingram as well. He's 7,400, a little too cheap. There's a lot of guys too cheap on FanDuel. Sorry, keep going, Sheets.
Yeah, Aaron Gordon is 4,300.
Yeah, it's getting to be a little bit like, okay, I think we can take a shot with this guy. I will say that he hasn't hit 30 in a while, but still, if he hits 25, even that's not the worst thing for you. And he could. It's not like he can't hit 30. So,
but I like the guy you mentioned is before. I think is Isaiah Stewart.
Yeah,
he's still a good price. I mean, it's obviously not as it's not like 4,900 anymore, but whatever. I mean, he's they're developing him. He's playing the minutes, and Orlando stinks and all that stuff. So
always do like to play on FanDuel, but because he does have like a pretty good floor for steals and blocks. Like he almost never is not coming out with multiple steals and blocks, and I think that gives him some edge there. Sorry,
and you had as far as spending, you had mentioned Zion. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. But I like Randall as well. I think that if you play Ingram, it's a decent anti-Zion play if you want.
Mhm.
So I think it's Isaiah Stewart middling, Aaron Gordon pay down, and Julius or Zion pay up.
Yeah, I agree that there's two guys in the same game that I think are interesting that I didn't really talk about much, and partly it's their price, and partly it's that game environment. That if I'm not doing, or even if I am like fully, I could stack that Portland or Atlanta game, and Covington can shoot 5 times and get 24 fantasy points. If he makes a few threes, you're looking at 30 plus. So the argument for Gordon being a good play, I feel like also should go over to Covington. They're sort of similar in terms of their general production, and not doing a ton from the scoring side. But Covington, maybe because he can, get hot from outside or something, he has maybe I don't want to say more upside because Gordon in general probably does, but maybe has a chance to shoot the ball more, I guess. The other one is John Collins, and I just think that, like, again, it's a really good game environment. He's much more involved. They've played in some blowouts lately, so it's been kind of hard to track where he's, what's happening with them. But he does kind of stand out as being a decent play. I don't love this position either. Even Stewart I like a lot, but I can see bus paths for a lot of these guys. So I'm sort of looking at some lower owned guys like Collins and Covington and sort of considering that. But I mean, the main guy for me, it would be Zion. And I agree. If you could, maybe you could do something different and pay down a point guard and play up for both Zion. It wouldn't be that different, but you could pay up for Zion and Randall at power forward. I think that's kind of interesting.
So at center, it's so fun. It's the exact same conversation I seem to always have with myself on FanDuel. So on the one hand, you could pay all the way up for Jokic, right? Which certainly makes sense. Or you pay all the way down and pay $3,600 for Kevin Looney or something like that.
I don't think it's a viable solution to me.
What's that?
I don't know how viable that is to me today.
Well, I was going to say it depends on if you want to jam in all these other guys.
Well, it's just they're so easy to, like, every center is underpriced except for Jokic, and he's even reasonably priced. Like Embiid is way too cheap. I think Vooch is too cheap if he plays. I even think Capella is reasonable. I think that Rudy Gobert is probably slightly too cheap. I just feel like I'd rather take a shot on the guys with the 50s and the 60s and the 70s at center than play a guy who really doesn't really get you more than 20, even if you want to pay up at other spots, because there's enough other places to pay down. We did mention that the guard spots, and then even some small forward and power forward options. So I think you should be spending up at center personally.
Well, what I was going to say is that, but if you didn't want to do that, right? I think people are going to going to pivot a little bit to Rudy Gobert at that 7,800 range in the middle. So what I like to do is to pivot off the pivot, and whenever that happens, it's always Valanciunas.
I get it, and that's the last thing I was going to say. I think Joe Val is definitely in play, and will, as usual.
Not that scared of Taj Gibson. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and by the way, I mean, these games are important, and there's always upside for him. He's always going to be projected at 28 minutes. He can always play 32 or 34, and he can always put up. I mean, he literally puts up 40 most of the time, I think, here. So you're in pretty good shape with him, and I think he's got 50 in him, absolutely. Especially even though the Knicks are a good defensive team, part of the reason was because Noel has been good this year, and so has Mitch Robinson, obviously, and without those guys, you have old man Gibson trying to guard Valanciunas. Doesn't seem like a recipe for success. So I like it.
Yeah, so watch for everything, but specifically watch for LeBron, his status.
Yep.
We mentioned Malcolm Brogdon a couple of times. Watch for that. But we'll be there. We'll be there later to walk you through what we know at the time. Maybe like 6 o'clock. Is it 6 or 6:30 tonight? 6 o'clock?
I think 6, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll walk you through whatever we know at that point. And anything else?
No, good luck to everybody out there. Thanks, Sheets, and we'll see you guys at the top of the leaderboards.
All right, see you later.